Good evening. We're going to go ahead and try to get started here. We want to welcome everybody. Parent and Community Network and Lyons Township High School welcomes you to our event. I'm Jean Whiting, and I'm the Student Assistance Program Coordinator here at Lyons Township. We would like to thank you for coming out. We know this is a special day in many ways, but it's special for us because we're happy to present a program on growth mindset, which is on a lot of people's minds these days. Just a couple of commercials. One of them is for Parent Community Network. I work with a very small and committed group of volunteers that put together this program and put together most of the programming that you see advertised throughout the community throughout the year. And we are always looking for a set of hands and some minds and hearts in order to help us continue our quest for parent programming in the area. So if you've got a little time to share and are willing to help distribute signs or literature, if you've got more time to share and would like to be part of the planning group, please give us a holler through email, either at the Parent Community Network site or to me here at LTHS. So the second commercial is for our bigger event, our multi-talk event, our Parent University, which takes place next year, this school year, on Saturday, February 3rd. We're hoping you can join us. That's at South Campus, and we will have a keynote on resilience and growth. Our own Mr. Brad Anderson, and then we also have a variety of other sessions scheduled for a variety of age groups and on different parenting topics. So we hope you will join us. We don't have the website up yet, but we want to ask you to put that on your calendar. But we don't have the. You'll be getting more registration information as time goes on. So I'm happy to present our leader tonight. Her name is Jana Peskett, and she is the Director of Digital Learning and Curriculum Design at Mindset Works, which is a leader in growth mindset training for educators and for students. So we're very fortunate to have her. Jana's passionate about sharing the growth mindset to folks and really believes it's very important and an important key to learning, closing the achievement gap, and indeed encouraging all of our kids to do great things. Jana has spoken at numerous universities, K-12 schools, and conferences. She develops curriculum and is still in the classroom as an adjunct professor at Flagler College. So she's in the trenches still. Prior to her role at Mindset Works, she was an innovation specialist and a math curriculum developer at Florida Virtual School, which is the nation's largest K-12 public virtual school. And she was also what we call a brick and mortar teacher in math for 13 years. So we're very, very happy to have her with us. I'd like you to welcome her, and we appreciate, again, you being here. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Hi, how are you? Thank you for coming. Are you glad to escape from your homes? Or, I know I am, a little bit glad to escape. So it's great to get out and learn, but it's also great to have a little bit of a break once in a while and feed your own brains. I think I can kind of skip this first slide because Jean just said so many wonderful things about me. I was a math teacher for many years. I still am. That's where I started in education. I worked for Florida Virtual School, a huge district of virtual classes in Florida. I developed curriculum, and I worked on their innovation team. Been at Mindset Works for the last 4-something years, and I love it. Right now I'm an adjunct at Flagler College. I was just teaching there this morning. I like to run, I like to garden. Those are some of the things that I do for fun. But I think what most qualifies me to be here are these 3 little rugrats. This little one is Charlotte, Sophie, and Raina. Sweet, sassy, salty. is what I like to call them. But they're lots of fun and they keep me busy. They are 3rd, 8th, and 11th graders. And so I want to start today with a story about a little girl who quit everything she tried. And in fact, this is a picture of when she was trying to learn how to ride a bike. Even took her down to the beach. We live on the beach in Florida, and I thought, oh, she's afraid to fall. So maybe if I take her down to the beach where she won't skin her knees up, she'll be more likely to try. Wouldn't put her feet down, wouldn't try. She tried just about everything. Skateboarding, this is the first time and the last time she was on that skateboard, because she just gave up everything if she couldn't be the best right out of the gate. She wanted to master whatever it was that she tried right away, and there was no room for trial, error, or failure. Swim team, gymnastics, ballet, I could go on and on of the things that she tried and quit within one season. Now, usually I'd make her stick with it because I paid the money after all, and I'm not going to lose my $400 for the season. But she would worm her way out of it one way or another, and then you kind of walk that line as a parent. What's worse? Do I force them to do something that they don't love, or do I let them get away with, not learning a lesson to stick with something? So you walk that line as a parent. And I walked that line for many years. This is her 5th grade academic awards, where she was given awards for all A's all the time. So I didn't really think much about her quitting the swim team or, the skateboard is getting dusty or whatever, because academics were fine. Straight A's all the time, whatever. She doesn't like extracurriculars. It's the way she is. Until she got to 6th grade. And so let's just take a closer look at that face. 6th grade, dum, 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 dum. And she started middle school that was a really challenging program. She was no longer at the top of the class. She was now with a lot of really smart kids. And she felt like she was drowning and that she couldn't keep up. And she felt like she wasn't as good or as smart as the other kids. And so it's one thing to quit ballet. You can't quit the 6th grade. Am I right? I mean, you just can't. So we had to figure something out because our family was in a complete crisis mode. And it was at that time that I discovered mindset, and it has completely changed this child. Now, she can still be a little grating here and there because, you just have your personalities. But she is a completely different person, and she understands that failure is the way to success. It is the way through and the way forward, and that doesn't define you as a person. So I'm going to talk to you about what I learned today and how I helped her develop a growth mindset. So this is a beautiful scene. Carol Dweck, who is the founder of the company that I work for, Mindset Works, she wrote a book called Mindset. And she says, perhaps if life were like one large schoolroom, it would be okay to try to stay perfect. But life isn't like that. It begins to reward taking on challenges, seizing opportunities, and sticking with them, which is what I discovered with my daughter, that life isn't like one big schoolroom. I thought, oh, everything's fine as long as she's making A's in all of her classes. She's really smart. She's fine, right? No, there's so much more to life out there, and life really does reward you when you take on challenges. So I realized that I wasn't teaching her to take on challenges. So there's this new paradigm that exists, and this paradigm is one in which we understand that there are all these other different factors in life that are just as important as academic skills. So I spent so much of my time working on academic skills with my kids that I forgot to teach them how to delay gratification and how important effort was, and how to manage time, and how to be curious and self-efficacious, and all of these other skills. The schools don't teach a whole lot of this. They're starting to now, but they don't teach a whole lot of this because they're so inundated with standardized tests, and they really have to push the academics. So I didn't teach much of self-regulation or hope or bravery or grit. I didn't know that I had to teach these things, and what's more, I didn't know how. But when I started to read about the research that says that non-cognitive skills in all kinds of longitudinal studies are shown to have a greater impact on long-term life success than academic skills or pure IQ. So there are a couple of studies that stood out to me. One is by an economist named James Heckman. He won a Nobel Prize. And James Heckman did a study where he compared kids who got the GED to kids who graduated from high school. And he was able to measure their non-cognitive skills. And what he found was that those who had graduated from high school, even though they had the same academic skills as the GED students, they were way more successful later in life. And he kind of said, well, what is that? What is this dark matter floating out there that they have? If they know the same academics, if they know the science, the history, the math, what is it? And he realized and he figured out that it's all of these skills that they developed by sitting their butts in a chair for 4 years and going through kind of some painful experiences in high school. And so it was a way to develop resilience that led to longer marriages, higher incomes, less incarceration, and all these different economic points, which is really interesting because it's not an education study, it's an economics study. So he said, this is the stuff that we need to be teaching in our schools. And there are a lot of studies out there like that. It's been all over the news for the last couple of years. Non-academic skills are the key to success, but nobody really knows what to call them. So sometimes they'll call them soft skills, or non-cognitive, or 21st century skills, or growth mindset. So people are kind of fuzzy on the language because it's really hard to nail down hope and curiosity, and these other kind of ooey-gooey things that are hard to hold in your hand. It's much easier to look at, say, the quadratic formula, because that's a formula and that's a thing, or can you write a 5-paragraph essay? So these other things are harder to nail down. But we know that they are important, and what we have to learn is how can we develop these traits in our kids? And it turns out that growth mindset is a key lever in motivation and achievement for our students. So Carol Dweck has written this book. Have anyone in the audience read the book? Oh, lots of you. Awesome. Okay, great. Loved the book. I hope you did too. And so one of the things that she talks about in the book is that growth mindset is this combination, or kind of more like a fight between what we know from neuroscience and then what we know from psychology. That neuroscience tells us that when we try hard things, we get smarter. It accelerates our learning, the neurons connect. We can see in the brains, and we know this now. However, psychology helps us to understand that it hurts to try hard things, because if we mess up and we fail, then we'll be embarrassed. So we need to do hard things that are too hard, but we hold ourselves back from doing hard things because we're scared. And the older you get, the more scared you get. And so this is what growth mindset teaches us, that we have to find a way to break down those psychological barriers and build cultures in which kids feel safe to take risks and make mistakes, because that's how you learn. That's how you accelerate your learning. So she talks about 2 mindsets. There's the fixed mindset, where you believe that you are pretty much born the way you're born, and you can't do much to change your intelligence or your abilities. And then the growth mindset, where you believe that your actions, efforts, skills can change your intelligence and your abilities. So in a fixed mindset, of course, you believe your intelligence is fixed and there's not much you can do to change that. I used to believe that. I mean, I can tell you, I used to believe that before I learned about mindset. And then I started doing research, and I started reading the research and saying, well, wait a minute, look at all these examples of people whose IQ, literal IQ, has changed. Their skills have been developed over time. They can now do things they couldn't once do. All kinds of evidence out there that intelligence can be developed. If you're in a fixed mindset, your goal is to look smart. So you want to do things that are easy for you, in which you will be successful. And you don't want to take a risk and do something that you might fail at. Your goal in a growth mindset is to learn new things, so you're going to try new things. You're going to try things that are a little bit hard for you. In a fixed mindset, effort is viewed as useless, because if I'm not meant to do something, why would I try? Why would I bother? Whereas in a growth mindset, effort is viewed as the path to mastery. This is what I have to do to get better at this thing. Failure is viewed as helpless, so I'm like, if I failed, it wasn't my fault, I'm going to blame somebody else, or I'm going to throw up my hands and say I'm a terrible person. In a growth mindset, every failure is a learning opportunity. Every mistake is an opportunity to look back and learn from it. And if you're in a fixed mindset and you've been criticized, you're going to feel threatened by other people. However, if you're in a growth mindset, you're going to focus on that improvement, focus on that message. Say, what can I learn from this? Even if you might not agree with that criticism, you're going to say, there's something here I can take away from this. Ultimately, when you have a fixed mindset, locked down. You don't seek out opportunities for growth and for change. But when you have a growth mindset, you understand that there is no such thing as a ceiling on your potential. It's liberating to say, I don't know how good I can get, but I'm going to keep trying, rather than to think, oh, there's only so much that I or others can do. So what does this sound like with your kids? How do you incorporate growth mindset into your parenting? If your child has a fixed mindset, then they're going to define smart as doing things quickly and easily. I'm so smart, look how quickly I did this. Look, I got 100, I'm so smart. I'm just naturally smart at certain things. I'm naturally smart with math, but I'm not a good writer. Or I'm naturally good at writing, but I'm not so good at math, or whatever. It's embarrassing to have to try. So I'm embarrassed when I have to try something difficult. Anyone know kids like that don't want to raise their hands? They're a little embarrassed. Yeah. If your child's in a growth mindset, they're going to understand that when something's hard, it's not a reflection of how smart they are. That just means it's a hard task. It doesn't reflect back on who they are as a person. Or they're going to know, I don't have to be perfect when I'm trying something new. This is a new thing. I'm going to make some mistakes. That's expected. It's part of the learning process. Nobody likes to be wrong. And even the most growth-minded children or people among us are going to go, oh, I made a mistake. Oh, that stings. But they're always going to go back and say, what can I learn from it? How can I do that better next time? When I kicked that ball and I missed the goal, oh, I should have kicked it with the right side of my foot instead of the left foot. They're going to go back and revisit prior mistakes. So if you're in a fixed mindset as a parent, you might say things or think things like, well, I wasn't good at that, so you're not going to be good at that either. Or let's choose courses that are easy so you'll be successful. Let's not push it too much. Let's choose some easy things for you. Or if you're in a growth mindset, you're going to say, like, if something is hard, that means it's time to dig in. That means it's time to get extra help, try some new strategies. You're finally being challenged. And you're going to view a bad grade as an opportunity to figure out what the person doesn't know. So, a C comes home and you're not going to go, oh my gosh, what happened? You're going to say, oh, okay, cool. What is it that you don't know here? This is an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to look at what we don't know yet. So how do our mindsets affect our outcomes? This is a big part of the research and what it's based on. So in this picture, poor number 21, he's just too tall. If he thinks I'm the best, that's his belief. The behavior would be that he doesn't try because he thinks he's got natural talent because of his height. If he doesn't try, he doesn't improve. So that's how our beliefs can impact our outcomes. Or on the other hand, every other student on that team, I don't have the natural talent that number 21 has. I'm not even going to bother. Why should I bother? I'll just pass him the ball. No sense in practicing my shooting skills. They're not going to practice. Therefore, they're not going to improve. So it's that belief that's at the core of everything. You can talk about changing behaviors like, oh, go practice more, go practice more. Oh, you need to sit up straight, you need to do your homework, you need to do this and do that. Those are all behaviors. And unless you address the core belief that I can improve, I believe that I can improve, then all of those behaviors are not going to be addressed effectively. Do you have a child that sometimes acts this way? You think maybe a fixed mindset has held one of your children back in some ways? I mean, our children are all different with different personalities. But once you start to learn about mindsets, it's pretty startling. So let's take a minute and let's just have a quick chat with a neighbor about if you have a child or know a child that has any of those symptoms of a fixed mindset. Okay, let's take 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Alrighty. So I think we can all relate to this. We know people like this. We know kids that have said, oh, I'm good at this. I'm going to work on this more because I'm good at it. And then what happens when you work on the things you're good at, you get better at them. Whereas if we would realize that we can improve our abilities in other areas and put the time and the effort and the extra practice into those other areas, we can get better at those too. So there's a lot of research that shows us that mindsets affect performance and outcomes in the academic setting. And I'd like to share one of the studies in which students at the beginning of middle school were given a survey. And the survey said things like this: to be honest, you can learn new things, but you can't really change how smart you are. So if you strongly agree with that, would you say that that's a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? You can call it out. Pretty fixed, yep. If you strongly agree, that's a pretty strong fixed mindset. So the students answered questions on a survey like this. It's a standard 8-question survey. And then they were sorted into 2 different buckets based on their responses: those who had more of a fixed mindset and those who had more of a growth mindset. And then the researchers left, and they didn't do anything. And they came back 2 years later. And what they wanted to know was, where are these kids at the end of junior high school? Did it matter what their mindset was when they first started? And it turned out that their grades changed pretty dramatically. They were all about the same in their math standardized test scores. They were all right around average kids leaving elementary school. But those who believed that they could get smarter did, and those who believed that they couldn't actually went down. So this is what happens to so many kids, and what was happening to my daughter at the beginning of middle school or junior high is that it's this time of transition. You also see it in the beginning of high school and in the beginning of college. So anytime you have these transitions, people start to question everything about themselves. Can I do this? Am I good enough? Am I smart like these other people? And if you think that you can't get better, then you don't try, and then you don't get better. So the kids who thought they could get better, even though they started off with all the other kids, they actually did get better over time. Now, this is a statistically significant difference. And think about what might happen at the end of high school. So where are those kids that had grown, just the 4 points, but where are they at the end of high school? These are the kids that were average that then got into college because of their mindset. So we know that mindsets matter. We see this all over the place. There was another big study recently done in Chile with 150,000 kids. What they found was that kids who were more growth-minded were 3 times as likely to be in the top quartile. So we know that students who achieve highly have growth mindsets. But how do we change those mindsets? So there's really 2 things that we can focus on. We can focus on process praise, and we can focus on teaching them about the malleability of intelligence. So learning about the research in kid-friendly ways, and also the way that we talk to our kids. So process praise is everything that I didn't used to do. It's instead of coming to the end and waiting for the goal and waiting for the final thing at the end, the test to praise, you're praising all the little bits along the way. You're giving feedback on all the tiny things as you go. So in this study that shows us the importance of process praise, each student worked on a puzzle, kind of like this one. And then after getting the right answer, they were told one of 2 things. They were either told, wow, that's a really good score. You must be smart at this. And if you've read the book, you're familiar with this study. Or they were told, wow, that's a really good score. You must have tried really hard. So if you have a fixed mindset, it feels really good to be told, you must be smart at this. You're smart. Oh, yeah, I am smart. I was born this way. But if you have a growth mindset, it feels really good to be told you must have tried hard, because you're like, yeah, I did. I worked really hard for this. Okay, I'm going to keep working hard. So it's not something, smart is not something that I have or am. It's something that I become or grow into. So after they gave these 2 different kinds of praise, they had a question. They said, do you want another question? Oops. They said, do you want another question or another puzzle just like the first one, or do you want one that'll be harder, but you'll learn from it? And so the kids who were praised for being smart, for the most part, said, no, thank you. I'll take another easy puzzle, please. I want to keep on looking smart. But those who were praised for working hard were like, okay, hard work is a good thing. I want to keep working hard. Give me a harder puzzle. And why is this so important? To choose a hard task. Because when we choose hard things, that's when we accelerate our learning. That's when we grow our brains. That's when we get smarter. We have to want to do the harder thing. You have to choose something that's just a little bit too hard for you. Because if you keep doing the easy things, you're not going to see any growth. So then the researchers were so mean, they gave another puzzle, and they said, now try this one. Only it was impossible. And so all of the students failed and got it wrong. So they set them up for failure, and they wanted to know what happens after a failure. So in other words, does the way that we praise children foster resilience? Does it make them bounce back after a failure, or do they crumble? And what they found is that, in fact, praising for effort developed and fostered that resilience. Praising for effort and telling kids, you worked hard as opposed to you are smart, this is what got those kids to work hard. And even though they failed and they got one wrong, they said, okay, give me another one. I know I'll get the next one. I know I can get the next one. Whereas those who were told they were smart, they couldn't even do the easy puzzles again because they had a complete crisis of confidence. And what's more, the kids who were told that they were smart, they lied about their scores. They had to write letters to their parents saying what they had done that day and what their grade was. And the kids who were told that they were smart said, oh yeah, I did great, got an A. Even though they clearly didn't, they lied. Over and over and over, the study has been done with the same result. They misrepresent their scores because they're ashamed and embarrassed because they were supposed to be smart. Whereas when you are told that you work hard, hard work is something that anyone can do. Hard work is something that I can continue and repeat and keep trying. It's not something that I have or don't have. It's something I can do that's within my own locus of control. So you are so smart is something that I told my daughter every single day of her little life. And the whole time she was thinking, I'm not so sure about that, Mom. And it did come easy to her, just like it does come easy to many of our children, I would assume, until what happens when they come up against that first challenge? What happens when they fail that first test? Because if it hasn't happened yet, I can guarantee you it is going to happen. Failure is a natural part of learning and of life, and we will all have them. And we need to learn how to fail safely when we're in school, in elementary school, so that when we get to college, and in middle and in high school, so that when we get to college and we fail a test, we don't drop out and change the whole course of our lives. Because we're 19 and our prefrontal cortex is not quite developed all the way, but we think we know it all. And we think that because we had one failure, that's the end of our life. No, we need practice failing when they're young and when they're still home and when we can guide them through these lessons. So I didn't realize that as a parent. I don't know why. That message passed me by. But once I started to understand how important it was to fail safely and fail often, you better believe I have all kinds of opportunities for failure in my house. So instead of saying you are so smart, what does smart mean? Think about what you mean when you maybe say something like that. You mean, I'm proud of you. You mean, you're strong. You try hard. You work hard. You're resilient. You're determined. You mean all of these other things, but what happens is we just say the first thing that comes out of our mouth, like, oh, you're brilliant. Oh, you're a natural. I mean, I did it not too long ago. It was just a few months ago. My little one went to the skate park for the first time, and she was nervous, and she had been skating, but this was the first time at the skate park, and there's all these like burly skate guys with tattoos and stuff, and she was like, sat by the side for a while, finally got on. She dropped into that ramp, and I was like, oh my God, you're a natural! And I went, I mean, you worked really hard to develop that skill of skating. And it's true, she did work really hard, but what came out of my mouth? And I do this for a living, So she did work really hard. She has roller skates at home, and she's been going on the sidewalk, and she's been doing all kinds of things to build up those skills. But the first thing I said was, look at you, you're a natural. So we do this kind of thing all the time just out of habit. We need to think about what we mean when we say you're a natural or you're smart or you're brilliant or you're awesome, and add details and flavor and color to that statement so that we can tell them what it is that we truly appreciate about their efforts. So we have to encourage the behaviors that we want to see, like taking on a challenge. I'm proud of you that you took on that challenge, and I don't expect you to get it right because it's a little bit too hard for you. or having grit and determination, asking good questions. So my middle daughter she could choose which kind of project she wanted to do, and she did one of the harder ones. And I said, "That's awesome, I'm so proud that you chose a harder project. You might not get 100 on that one, because that was harder. And that's okay. That's a good thing. I'm proud of you that you chose something harder." So we need to praise those kinds of things instead of just the easier things, the easier ways out, sticking to it. So can you relate? Have you ever done these kinds of things with your kids? What did you make today? Mistakes. Parenting is filled with mistakes, especially when we're tired or when we're busy or when you're trying to get out the door and you're carrying a million bags, that kind of thing. So sometimes we do things that later on we go, that maybe wasn't the best thing to say. Have you ever given fixed mindset praise? And if so, what do you think were those unintended consequences? So let's take a few minutes for a quick little chat. Okay, let's take 30 seconds. Okay, we ready to come back together? Oh, wow, you guys are good. Usually that takes much longer. All right, so what is the impact of praising intelligence and ability? So when we say things like, "You're the best," what might they be thinking, or what impression might that give? They might think, oh, if I take risks, if I try something too hard and I screw it up, maybe I won't be the best. Or if we say things like, "You picked this up so quickly," and we praise their speed and agility, They might think, what if I don't pick it up quickly? Well, then maybe I'm not that good at this. Maybe I'm not naturally good at this. That was one of the mistakes that I made. I would praise, oh, you picked it up so quickly. You did it so great. Look, you got it already. You got it already. Oh, well, no, I don't have it already. That must mean I'm not good at this. So anything that's worth doing takes time and effort. We don't want to praise speed. Or you make this look so easy. Well, actually, there's a lot of hard work that is put into making something look easy. So when you praise somebody for making something look easy, they don't want to look like they've had to try hard. They don't want to expose the underbelly of effort. So are we being quick when we praise our kids and give them feedback, or are we being mindful? And it's tough work. It's much easier to just grab a bag of Cheetos and say, you're so smart. And just like, you're so smart, or you're brilliant, awesome, or great job. And it just flies off and you're doing something else. Great job, honey. It's quick, it's tasty, it's kind of truly delicious. There's nothing like that crunch of a Cheeto, am I right? It feels kind of good. It feels really good to them at the moment. But then what happens later? It leaves this like orange stain. It's like all around your mouth and like on your shirt, and like you're like, oh, the stain of the Cheeto shame. I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have. That's the same thing that intelligence praise gives them. It's like, it's a quick high, but then it doesn't last. Whereas if you went to the effort to go into the fridge and open the door and get out the celery and take it to the sink and wash it and get the dirt out of the little crevices, where it gets, then you cut the celery, you take the peanut butter, you unscrew. You know why I'm doing all this, because it takes lots of effort. It's so much easier to reach for the quick fix. But just like Cheetos are going to be something that don't last, ants on a log is going to be something that sustains your child or you, if that's your choice of snack food. Giving them effort praise and letting them know what you liked about what they did. I like watching you do that. You tried really hard on that math problem. You did it 4 different times before you got it right. That shows me you really care. That shows me you're really sticking to it. I value that quality in you. When you give them praise that shows them that you value their determination and their effort, that's what's going to stick with them, and that's what's going to sustain them, and that's what's going to get them through those failures in college when they fail their first stats test or whatever it may be, and they cry and they want to come home and drop out. It's praising the process all along the way that will sustain them in the same way that ants on a log does a lot better for nutrition than Cheetos. And ants on a log is delicious too. It might get a bad rap, but it is truly delicious. It's crunchy. It's got that, sweet, salty thing going on. Give it a try. All right, so there are some things that we say that just naturally come out, and you might not realize they're fixed mindset, so we're going to reframe a little bit. Okay, so if you're in a fixed mindset, you might say, you're such a smart kid, or you picked this up so quickly. What can I say instead of that? You have that down. What's your next challenge so you can grow? So if you have a child that brings home 100 every week, like mine does on the spelling test, 100 every single week. She really doesn't study. And I'm like, I'm not down with this 100 every week. I'm not having it. I need to tell your teacher you need some challenge words. This is not hard enough for you. You should be missing some. I don't see you study. I don't see you practice. You just know this stuff already. What's your next challenge? You need to be growing. So I'm not saying, yay, another 100, let's put it on the fridge. On the other hand, my other daughter, who worked so hard in this solo she had to sing for this musical theater class, she worked so hard, and she got a 92, and she was so proud of that 92. I mean, the comments from the teacher were she was so proud, and she was belting it out every single day, and I'm like, honey, I'm in a meeting, stop with the singing. But she worked so hard, and that was a reason to celebrate. So when they worked hard, and they deserve that praise. And that's when you celebrate all that work. When you're amazing, is there anything you can't do? That's the Cheeto praise. How about we need to raise the bar for you now? Because I don't want you to be bored. If life isn't this easy, it won't always be this easy. So we need to give you harder things to do. You're natural. I know you can do this if you put your mind to it. So that's maybe when something is hard and they're complaining a little bit. You might say, oh, you've always done well in math. You're a natural at this. I know you can do it. Just put your mind to it. I think what we need to do is acknowledge that sometimes things are going to be hard, and that's okay. That means it's working. And you can develop some strategies to work through it together. All right, so when they succeed with effort, what can we say? Look at how hard you worked. Look at that hard work. When they succeed easily, what are we going to say? You're ready for something harder. When they fail, you just don't know this yet. This is an opportunity for you to learn something you don't know yet. So we can incorporate yet into our lexicon. And in fact, it does such a nice job of when you say, a kid comes home, I can't do long division, yet. Add yet onto the end of it, and it changes the whole outcome. All right, so we are going to do a little bit of practice, a little bit of demonstration of what it looks like in your own home when you might say some fixed mindset or growth mindset things. So I need some volunteers that may or may not have been planted in the audience. Yay, come on up. Figure out how to turn that on. All right, so you this, and you two will be together, okay? Hi, and I'll call you over one at a time. Just come on up.
Are we in pairs?
You're in pairs. You're in pairs. Yep. Okay. You are a pair. All right. You two are a pair. All right. Oh, wait a minute. That shouldn't be there. There you go.
Thank you.
You two are a pair. And Erica? Okay, cool. Did you get that on? Okay, so what we have here is a kid. Hello? Let's see. I have to hold it down. There we go. Hello, hello? Hello, hello? There we go. Okay, so we have a kid. This is Desiree. Say hi to Desiree, everybody. Okay, so she's going to be our kid. And now each set of parents, one of them has a fixed mindset message and one of them has a growth mindset message. And we're going to have to figure out which is which. All right, so we have some different scenarios that Desiree is going to read for us. And so kind of hold, if you don't mind, like kind of hold your card up like this, because that's how she knows which one to read is by the color. Okay.
24 divided by 6 is 3, right?
Well, Desiree, that's not right. How did you get that answer? It seems like you don't understand this yet. What strategies can you try to understand it better?
Okay.
Hi, honey. That's not right. The answer is 4. Are you paying attention in class? It seems like you're not even trying.
All right, so who do you think was great? Let's give them a round of applause. That was good. Thank you. Which one do you think was more growth-minded? What's your name?
Kevin.
Kevin. That would be Kevin, okay? Right? So Kevin, what did he say that was growth-minded? He said, what are some strategies that we can use? Notice he didn't give the answer. He didn't give the answer. We don't want to give answers. We don't want to spoon-feed answers. We want to say, more like elicit answers out of our children, especially when we're helping them with homework, and that's what we want our teachers to do. We don't want them to just tell answers all the time. We want kids to develop strategies to find answers on their own. So there's the use of strategies, there's the use of tell me what you've done so far, and also, of course, not saying, are you even paying attention? Okay, next one, go on down the line. I'm sorry?
You said it very nicely, though.
You did say it very, I have to say, like, hi, honey. That wasn't part of the script. That was just her own little spin she put on it. Wasn't that nice?
I just finished a project that took me 4 weekend days and several nights. I had to create a 3D model of a cell city that was set in ancient Roman times and describe a civic function of each part of the cell.
Wow, Desiree, that was a really hard project. Thank God that's over and you don't have to do that again.
All right, be honest. Who has felt that way about projects? I felt that way. That's a real life project. I really did feel that way, but.
That was a really hard project. You wanted to quit, but you didn't. Your effort has paid off. Next time, you'll be ready for this kind of challenge.
All right, so what is growth-minded about that? We have, he's alluding to next time. What are you going to do next time based on the success you've had this time? Yes, that was really hard, but look at all that hard work you put into it. And then you can say, "Ooh, thank God it's over." Yeah, no, that was a real 3D model of a cell city, and it was like Roman times / cell body with nucleus, and oh my, it was something. It was some kind of learning experience. Okay, thanks guys. Give them a round of applause.
My science class is too hard. We're supposed to memorize all this stuff and also do labs, and the teacher is so mean.
Well, let's see if we can't get you a different teacher. You always get A's. It's not normal to see you struggle.
Thanks, Mom.
Finally, someone is challenging you. That means you're going to learn a lot in this class. You'll also learn how to deal with a difficult person, which is a really important life skill. Let's break this work down into chunks and start at the beginning.
Okay, so, aw, she needs a hug too. So it's not only about content, right? So when our kids are in school and they're having to work through, whether it's a difficult teacher, a crabby teacher, or whatever it may be, students that you don't like working with, guess what? That's part of life. Learning how to deal with difficult people. So that's not something that we want to try to smooth over. We can frame it as a lesson. Give them a round of applause. They left before I could do that. Thanks, guys. Okay.
I won the writing contest in language arts class today. I love writing.
You have a real talent for writing. Maybe you should do creative writing as an elective next year, because it'll be an easy A. Writers don't make any money, though, so make sure you have a backup plan.
True story. One of my friend's mom said that to her.
The fixed mindset is so much more fun.
Sorry.
You've worked hard to become a good writer. How can you challenge yourself even better and learn something new you don't know how to do yet?
Okay, so clearly we're challenging ourselves. We're not gonna take that easy A. That's great you love writing, but let's try to do something you don't know how to do yet. Thanks, guys.
I had history today.
What grade did you get on that history test? Tell me about what you're learning in history. What interests you? Why?
All right, so clearly, which one is the Cheeto, right? What grade did you get on the history test? You're like, I knew there was a history test somewhere this week. How did you do on that test? Anybody done that? Yeah, that's like the first thing we gravitate towards. Instead of, tell me about what you're learning. What interests you? What excites you? What would you like to learn more about? So turning it to be more about the content rather than test grades. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Desiree. So it might seem obvious sometimes, but I guarantee you when you're in that moment, you're going to find yourself saying some of those fixed mindset things and go, oh, ouch, what did I do? Oh, okay, let me reframe that. And that's okay. That's totally normal. The last thing I want you to do is walk out of here going like, oh, I totally screwed up my kids. Now I know what I did wrong. Don't think that, because the first step in any kind of mindset work is to just kind of acknowledge, oh, I've done some of those things, but it doesn't mean that I'm always going to be like that. I can change and do some things differently tomorrow. It won't be perfect. It's going to be hard, but it should be hard. And give yourself a break. If you've done some of these things, you don't have to be the perfect parent.
You guys, I'm really upset. I was a terrible mom today. I told Valerie she was pretty.
Oh no, didn't you get that article I sent you?
Yeah, Molly, don't you want her to love her for her whole self and not her outer shell?
I know. It just slipped out. I forgot. I'm not supposed to comment on her appearance. I'm simply supposed to say, you exist.
Right.
Well, don't feel too bad, because last night I told Anthony, good job for finishing his dinner.
Oh, Megan, come on. I sent you that link to that video. It's a brief 90 minutes. Make the time.
Yeah, you're gonna ruin his relationship with food for the rest of his life.
Well, exactly. I think I fixed it. After dinner, I flipped the whole table over and yelled at the whole family, terrible job eating!
Good move.
That's smart, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm in the same boat. Timothy did a drawing, and I told him it was great. And I even said, I loved it.
Why did you do that? I sent you that blog post from momfarts.gov saying your comments should never be results-oriented.
I heard they're turning that blog post into a movie.
Oh, I can't wait.
What?
Yeah, that blog post, though, it said that you can only comment on the effort they put in.
Well, here's the bad news, guys. He didn't put any effort in at all. I think he's turning out to be a very gifted artist.
Don't tell him that.
I didn't! Once I realized it, I ran into my room and locked the door so I wouldn't be tempted.
Oh, well, the other day I told Valerie to hurry up, and now she has no sense of time at all, and she stopped sleeping.
Well, I told Tomothy not to touch his poop, and now he thinks there's something wrong with what came out of his body and he hates himself.
Oh, this morning Anthony said, I falled-ed. And I corrected him and said, no, you fell. And now he stopped talking.
Oh, I tried to teach Valerie right and left.
Molly?
I completely forgot that when she reaches a certain age, she can decide what's right and what's left. And now she can't even think for herself anymore.
Also this morning, I said, it's cold outside, rather than you may feel cold outside. And now Anthony thinks the world is a terrible, unfeeling place.
Well, I called our pet our dog. Wrong, guys. You don't label things. It's not fair.
No. Sometimes I feel like maybe we should stop reading these articles and everything and just trust our instincts.
Great idea.
No, Megan, it's not a great idea. Molly worked hard on that idea.
Yeah.
That's right. Sorry. But it's so true that sometimes we beat ourselves up, and what we just need to do is acknowledge that we're going to try better tomorrow. That's the best gift that you can give your kids. So remember that we have these two things we need to do. Process praise, which we just talked about, unpacked, saw a demonstration of, and also malleable intelligence. How do I teach my kids about the science of the brain when maybe I don't understand it as well as I would like in the first place? And because it seems mysterious and scary, but it's really not, it's not that tough. So we have a series of neurons, which are brain cells, and they send signals to each other when we try hard things. And when you try something really hard, this is how I explain it to my kids. When you try something really hard, your dendrites are reaching out from one neuron to the next, and they're trying to connect. And if you keep trying and you keep practicing, then it lays down pathways, and then it secures a pathway to the next neuron. But if you don't keep trying and you give up, then those dendrites will wither away. So when you lay down pathways, things that once were difficult seem easier. In this one study, they taught just those same exact things that I was just talking about to some students in a school in New York. They had a control group and an experimental group. The control group had study skills training and also basic brain information. And then the experimental group had that same stuff, just basic brain information. This is the parietal lobe, this is what it does, here are some study strategies. But then they taught the experimental group 2 extra lessons, 2 45-minute lessons, based on the malleability of intelligence, which is what I just gave you in 30 seconds. When you work hard, it physically changes the structure of your brain. Your neurons reach out for each other. So they did 2 45-minute sessions of that. And what they found, they used this article, You Can Grow Your Intelligence. And this article, you can find it online at the free resources, which is at the bottom of this page. It's letter B. So they used this article in order to teach this lesson. And they wanted to know, how does this affect grades, particularly in math, because that's an area where lots of kids have a fixed mindset, where they think that they can't do better or they're not meant to do math. And what they found was that those that were in the experimental group, their grades rebounded. Their math grades went up. Whereas those who were not, their grades went down, because that's what happens in middle school. That's just pretty much what happens on that trajectory. So their math grades went up, but they didn't teach them any math at all. They taught them about how their brain grows like a muscle when they work hard. They also saw a change in motivation. So the teachers didn't know which kids were in which groups, but they saw the kids coming in asking for more work, asking for feedback, asking for extra challenges because they wanted to grow their brain. So the control group didn't grow that much. The growth group had a huge response in motivation. And it's because it increases this internal locus of control. When you learn that you have the power to physically change your brain, then you will do whatever you can to change your brain. It affects your motivation and your achievement. And this is one of the ways that we can teach this.
Hey. Hi. Hey, hello again. Welcome to the iCam video channel. I'm glad you came back.
I'm so glad to see you.
Today we're going to talk about brains. This kind of looks like brains. A lot of people think the brain is a mystery. This yogurt's a mystery. But really, they just don't know much about the brain and how it works. It works deliciously. So, a lot of people think a person is born either smart, average, or dumb, and stay that way their whole life. But I have some exciting news. The brain is actually more like a muscle, and it gets stronger when you use it, and of course weaker when you don't. That means being smart can be a choice. Isn't that awesome? I'm totes excited. Like, super excited. I can't control myself. Here to tell us more about how the brain works is illustrator and my good friend, Elizabeth Condi.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Condi, but you can call me Bitsy. I like to draw. It's Tintin as Doctor Who. You know who Tintin is, right? And I'm going to talk to you about how the brain works. I know it sounds boring, but just imagine. Your brain is an infinite universe of complex, interconnected nerve cells called neurons that send billions of tiny electrical messages every second of every day. And that is just half of how awesome the brain is. All of those interconnected nerve cells change shape as you use your brain. Every time you practice, study, or learn something new, your brain forms new connections called synapses. The result is a smarter, faster brain. Just look at babies. When they're born, they don't know anything except that poop. And they grow, learn, and become smart. But growing and learning isn't just for babies. Even full-grown adults can grow their brain. Facts! Scientists conducted a study on the brain of animals that lived in challenging environments with toys and other animals compared to animals that lived in dull environments with no toys or other animals to play with. The animals in the dull environment just ate and slept all the time, but the animals in the challenging environments spent their time figuring out the toys and how to get along with the other animals. Scientists found that the animals being challenged had more connections between the nerve cells in their brain, and the connections were bigger and stronger too. In fact, their whole brains were 10% heavier than the brains of the animals in the dull environment. And they were actually smarter too, displaying more ease in solving problems and learning new things. So what's the point? The point is that most people think that if you don't know how to do something or you don't do it well, you're just dumb. But the reality is, you just haven't learned yet. Just like how my hand became better at drawing with practice, your brain can become better at reading, solving math problems, or just talking to others with practice. Real talk. Practice isn't always fun. Sometimes it's slow, time-consuming, or even painful. But when you see yourself getting smarter and you get better at the things you want to do, it makes your work worth it.
So this is one of the metaphors that, actually the metaphor that is proven to be most effective in teaching kids about malleable intelligence. And it's, your brain is like a muscle. The more you work it, the stronger it gets. So imagine if you went to the gym and your trainer said, you know, do 20 burpees just because. You'd be like, oh, these are terrible. I'm not going to do these. But when your trainer explains to you, well, a burpee is actually really good because it's going to get your chest muscles. You know what a burpee is, right? Should I demonstrate one real quick? Okay. No. It's going to get your chest muscles, it's going to get your quads, it gets your heart rate up at the same time, burns a lot of calories because you're jumping. So once your trainer explains all of that to you, you're like, okay, it's hard, but I understand why. It's the same thing with your brain. Like, they need to understand why they're going to have to do 20 long division problems, because you're going to lay down a new pathway in your brain. That's what it's going to do, and then that's going to be easier the next time you go to do it. It's going to help you do better things. So a lot of times we don't take the time to explain why kids are doing something. We just kind of tell them to do it, and they don't have a whole lot of choice in the matter. Teaching them about healthy habits that make a measurable difference in brain development, like sleeping for 7 to 9 hours a night. For little kids, at least 9 to 10 hours a night, makes a measurable difference, and for adults too. And leafy greens, brain foods, omega-3s, fish, nuts, all of these things are brain foods. And so one of the things that I started to do with my oldest daughter when we learned about mindset is every time she had some kind of a big day, like there was a test or there was a presentation or something she was nervous about, I would say, all right, let's make sure we have some brain food. Let's have some eggs for breakfast. This is good brain food. And so, you know, part of me started to think, is it really the eggs or is it her thinking that the eggs are giving her that boost? It didn't matter, right? it didn't matter in the end. When she said, okay, I've got my eggs, my brain has been fed, I feel good about this, it had the desired effect. Another thing we need to keep in mind is that negative emotions interfere with learning, especially if a child has experienced trauma at some point in their life, or something like when they were little. If their fight or flight response was activated over and over again, what happens is a pathway gets laid down in the brain from that fight or flight response being activated over and over again. So for example, you see a spider in the shower, that signal goes straight up to the thalamus, and it could take the high road, which is where it goes in the sensory cortex, and then it goes in the hippocampus where you're accessing memories, and you're like, what kind of spider is that? Is that the kind that's faster than a cheetah? Is that the kind that's a brown recluse? It's going to kill me. What is it? You can think about it. You can make an informed decision. You can get a cup. You can trap it, and then you can take it outside. Or is that signal going to travel the low road, which is quick and dirty, where that signal goes straight to the amygdala, which is that fear-producing part of your brain. And you go, ah, it's a spider. And you try to squash it or run away. So that's your fight or flight response kicking in. And like I said, when that happens over and over again, it can lay down pathways in your brain so that that's your first response. So that maybe you didn't see a spider, but maybe this is your spider. And you see this, and you immediately have a fight or flight response. I don't know what to do with that. Oh my God, my brain is going to shut down right now. And that can happen if you're used to having that fight or flight response activated. If you're high stress, if you're anxious, if you have a lot of nerves about work or what's expected of you in class. So in order to combat those negative emotions, we need to grow more positive emotions. One of the ways that you can do that is through gratitude. I've been doing a lot of research lately on gratitude for the brain. You might have heard about that, how it can change your brain by doing a daily gratitude practice. So one of the things that we do at my dinner table is we do pits and cherries. And a pit is something that happened that you didn't like very much, but a cherry is something that you're grateful for. And we go around the table, and everybody's got to do it. You start with the pit, you start with the yucky thing that you kind of want to get off your chest, and then you end with the cherry, the thing you're grateful for in that day. Because what research is showing us is that when we practice gratitude, it lights up parts of our brain that are more highly evolved, that allow us to create our own happiness, which I think is amazing. Who doesn't want to be happier, right? We all want to be happier. Another way that you can get rid of those negative emotions and replace them with positive emotions is to manage your emotions by something called square breathing. So this is where you breathe in to the count of 4, you hold it to the count of 4, you breathe out to the count of 4, you hold it to the count of 4. And you do that 4 times. And one of the best ways to teach your kids to use this strategy is to model it, especially when you're in the car and there's traffic and you're late and somebody just threw a Oreo at your head or something, and you're like, I'm losing my mind. Model it. And they might say something like, Mom, you're doing that breathing thing, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Are you stressed out? Yes, I am, and I'm managing my emotions so that I can think clearly. And when you do that for them, it really does set a great example for them, and they're like, oh, okay. And so that the next time when they're freaking out and they can't get their shoes on for soccer or whatever it may be, you can say, remember that square breathing I did the other day? It really helped me. Maybe you should try it. Instead of, do your breathing right now. Calm down. Do your breathing. Because that doesn't help. So a lot of times when we have high-achieving students or students who are somewhat perfectionists, we have to teach them how perfection is a moving target. Does anyone here have kids who get really upset if they don't make 100 on everything and they want perfection, they demand perfection of themselves? Okay, I've had those kids, or I had one of those kids, but not anymore. Because I learned what Carol Dweck has said, that she had to start shrinking her world to maintain perfection. I love that quote. I mean, think about it. If you can't stay perfect in your classroom, then maybe you'll just stay perfect at home. And if you can't stay perfect at home, then maybe you'll just stay perfect in the closet. And if you can't stay, you have to shrink your world because there's no such thing as perfection. It is a moving target. And what people who are perfectionists don't realize is that even though that duck looks really peaceful floating along the water, what's happening underneath to propel him forward? Mad paddling. So we don't see the paddling of everyone else, and we might think that other people have things easy and they glide along effortlessly. And we need to remember that everyone is paddling under the water at some point. And we can remind our perfectionist children of that when they try to set themselves up to compete with others who appear effortless and flawless. So there's really two kinds of perfectionism. It can be a vice or it can be a virtue. If you have a growth mindset and you're a perfectionist, you're going to keep pushing yourself for new challenges. So that's not necessarily a bad thing if you want to keep trying things that are harder and harder and harder. And you'll be okay with the fact that you might not get it perfect every single time. You're always pushing for growth. But then there's the fixed-minded perfectionist who will stomp their foot and quit when they don't get it right the first time. And that's what we want to avoid. So it comes through in the choices that we make, the things that we choose to do, whether we choose things that are within our comfort zone, things we know we'll get 100 on and get perfect grades on, or things that we know we'll learn from. And it also comes through in the results that we get. Are we going to be anxious when we're not perfect, or are we going to go, okay, what can I learn from that? So there's two different kinds of perfectionists. It's not all bad. You just want to make sure that you're operating in that learning zone, in the growth mindset. So some things that you could ask your perfectionist children, what are you struggling with? What's hard for you? Highlight the things that they might find a little bit of difficulty in and say, oh, I'm proud of you for sticking with that thing that's hard. What challenge did you seek out? What challenge will you seek out tomorrow? How are you going to push yourself tomorrow? You want to know what I had trouble with today? Modeling is the best thing that we can do for our kids. You have to model for your kids any struggles or challenges that you had. I modeled that for my kids the other day. I said I was feeling really anxious and upset because someone didn't answer an email. So I decided, why don't I just go ask her about it? So I did. And guess what? It worked. There was something wrong with her phone and she couldn't hit reply. And the whole time I was spinning out in my head going, why isn't she answering me? And so I modeled that for my kids. Like, we're not going to let dramas kind of hold us back. Let's be direct with people. And let's give people the benefit of the doubt. And just talking through that whole thought process of what you do and what you struggle with is incredibly helpful for them to know that it's normal. Struggle is normal. So I want you to be clear about what growth mindset is and it is not. It's not just encouraging. It's not just seeing effort as good or challenging or persevering. Don't ever give up. That's growth mindset. Wrong. No, that is not growth mindset. Or giving everybody a trophy just for showing up. Not growth mindset. Not growth mindset. It's the understanding that we can develop our abilities. It's that understanding. I know that I can develop my abilities. And I believe that others can too. That's the other part of it. So if you're struggling with another person, whether it's your child or a spouse or anyone else, it's understanding that other people can also develop their abilities. I really liked the way that you loaded the dishwasher yesterday because you put all the plates in just the right way so that when I unloaded it, it was really easy for me. I appreciate the extra effort you put into loading that dishwasher. It works. Try it. Try it. But you have to beware of the false growth mindset. And this is where everybody gets a trophy just for showing up. And I can tell you that that kid right there did not deserve that trophy. He was chasing the butterflies. He was not playing soccer. And there's my little one. So beware the false growth mindset. And the symptoms are that you just praise the effort alone. So in this case, it might be, oh, you showed up to soccer. Good job. I'm so proud of you for showing up. I'm so proud of you for showing up. Didn't really do anything. Your parents drove you here, You put on your shoes. Yay, good job. Giving false hope without action items. Oh, just keep practicing. You'll get better, Zachary. Just keep practicing. You'll get better. You'll like it eventually if you keep practicing. Instead of, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go home and you're going to kick the ball 50 times. And then after you do that, your mom is going to send me a text and tell me that you did that. And then we'll see how much better you are next time. So action items. Or blaming your child's mindset. Like, you just have a fixed mindset. That's what's wrong with you. You just think you can't. You have a fixed mindset about yourself. So you can't blame the mindset. You can show them opportunities for growth. But let's not forget about ourselves. This is all important for adults too. It impacts everything that you do. Your thoughts, your decisions, how you operate in the world. Growth mindset will force you to step out of your comfort zone and try something that you never thought you could do. It'll force you to take risks and get completely unexpected results. So think about how a fixed mindset might have held you back. Maybe relationships, academics, sports, exercise, fine arts, career growth. I have I like to run for fun it's not really fun. It's fun when it's over, but I run, and I have friends that I run with, and one of them decided we were going to do triathlons together, and I was like, oh, okay, I live in Florida, I can swim. So we signed up for a triathlon, and I can bike no problem, I can run no problem. I didn't really practice for the swim. I went out in the ocean a couple of times just to get used to, what the waves would feel like, but I didn't practice because I figured I could swim. Well, it turns out when the day of the triathlon came, and I'm in the water, and I'm swimming, I look over, and there's the lifeguard next to me. And I'm like, oh, hello, sir. Are you okay, ma'am? Are you in distress? No, I'm just swimming. Okay, well, you look like you were in distress. I thought maybe you were drowning. No, 19-year-old lifeguard, I'm not drowning in my Speedo one piece. I'm swimming. It's called swimming. It's a triathlon. So I get out of the water. I'm the last one out of the water. It was super embarrassing because I'm used to being up near the head of the pack, up near the front of the pack. And it was awful. I had a terrible run. It was the whole thing, terrible. And guess what? I haven't done one since. And that was like 3 years ago. So I kind of feel like I can't swim. I kind of feel like my muscles are too dense. See, I make up all these excuses about why I can't swim, when really I know if I did the stuff, then I could, but it's holding me back because my friends are still going on these trips, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to go on that. I'll go to a marathon with you. I'm not going to a try. And so it's holding me back from something that I want to do, and that's unpleasant. And I wish I could change that, and I would like to change that. So is your fixed mindset holding you back of something where you're like, I just don't think I can, or I don't want to do the work, but it's something you're missing out on in your life? So let's think about that for a minute and have a quick chat. This is a hard one. Okay, let's take 30 seconds. So some administrators and teachers got together here and made this great video about growth mindset in our personal lives here at LT.
So when I think of embracing the growth mindset, I think of public speaking. Many people have public speaking as their number one fear. And when I was in high school and college, young adult, it was a real fear for me as well. And I knew pretty quickly when I became an educator that you have to get pretty good at being a public speaker if you're going to present in front of groups, if you're going to teach in front of a class. And so I had to get better at that. And things like that are a fear, you can't just say try harder. There has to be specific strategies. You have to do something different to continue to get better at it. And for some people, that's outlining notes on a note card. For other people, it's practicing in front of the mirror. For other people, it's practicing in front of a colleague or a friend and getting feedback. For me, one thing that works is I like to script out a speech ahead of time, just so I can visualize how it's going to sound, how it's going to look, and that's helped me. But most importantly, just through experience and through implementing those strategies, I think anyone can become really effective at presenting in front of a group and presenting in front of a classroom. And for me, that's really embracing the growth mindset. And I know that I have a long way to go, but through improvement and through practice, hopefully I'll continue to get better and better.
Hi, my name is Sammy. I'm 8 years old, and when I was 6, I asked Santa if I could have a guitar. I do 20 minutes on my guitar a day, and I do a 30-minute lesson once a week. But sometimes I just want to quit, and I stomp up the stairs and be a drama queen. I have learned that I can take a short break, listen to the song on YouTube, or go bar by bar until I sort out my problems. I'm not where I want to be yet, but I just learned Riptide, and I know if I keep practicing, I can be a good guitar player.
I've had challenges throughout my life with fitness and weight. This past January, I started a low-carb diet, which I had tried before with some success before falling off the wagon and regaining weight. What made this time different is that I learned from my previous mistakes, like indulging myself when I felt down or giving up on the whole diet because I had some pizza and beer. I learned from these pitfalls and I modified my plan. In other words, I didn't let one slip-up bring me down completely. Instead, I used it as an impetus for pushing myself back into focus. I also tried new strategies like drinking a lot of water anytime I felt hungry and going for walks when I felt down instead of eating ice cream. After more than 6 months, I'm down over 35 pounds. I feel great, and I'm positive that I'll continue to have a more healthy lifestyle in the future.
What I wanted to get better at over the summer was handstands in the water. And Mommy told me to practice, so each time we went to the pool, I practiced. I used the strategy where Mommy holded my feet so I could feel how it felt. When I accomplished that,
Okay.
I learned how to twist at the end, and I know I was successful because I learned how to do it.
Hey, what's up, LT? My name is Mel Tiemann, and I'm here to tell you about how I have developed a growth mindset with something that many of our LT family members can hopefully relate to: work-life family balance. For my first 10 years at LT, I remember feeling like I lived, worked, breathed, and yes, even bled LT. I recall getting to school early every day and staying late like a lot of us do. And that was okay with less responsibilities at the time. However, in the last 5 years with a family now including 2 young boys, life has changed and I needed to make some adjustments as a working parent. I struggled at times and I didn't want to sacrifice time spent helping students or time with my own family. Something had to give. As a result, I had to rethink my time and prioritize what was truly important in my life. I started to set new goals little by little. I achieved this through constant reflection, reading some parenting articles, and engaged in supportive discussions with other working parents. To start, my availability for students, it had to change to 3 mornings a week and 2 days after school. The students survived and never complained. 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. has become family time, no work. Eventually, I also accomplished the goal of not taking work home on the weekends and only allowed work on some weeknights. To be honest, every now and then I slip up on that one, but it's a continuous effort. My priorities have shifted and each year provides clarity. I have also realized some positive benefits that impact my kids as a result of being a working parent. Being a teacher is a huge part of who I am, and my boys see that. Maybe they will learn more flexibility, the importance of planning ahead, gain more independence, and not get sick of me as easily. I don't anticipate the work-life balance to get easier over time. Currently, I hope to have even more family dinners around the table this year. By setting new goals and changing expectations, we realize that we can evolve our current mindsets by embracing life's challenges with a new lens.
Isn't that a great video? Yay! 'Yay! 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 ' Amazing. What I love the most about it is the way they talk about the strategies they use and how growth mindset is not just about saying try harder or good effort. It's about breaking it down into manageable chunks and using strategies that you know will work. And if that one doesn't work, then you try a different strategy. And there's been research done on the use of that word strategies. When you frame it in that term, like I'm going to use a different strategy this time. It's like a buffet table of strategies. Which one do I want to choose? And it puts the onus back on that person to be able to use a strategy. It's not about me, it's about the strategy I use. So it's hard to grow and change for adults because just like kids, criticism and failure and trying hard things that's out of our comfort zone, that stings. We think we did our best, and I'm done. I did my best. I'm done with that now. And we're afraid to do the hard work, just like I'm afraid to do that hard work that it takes to do that triathlon. Some strategies for growth. Remember that criticism is not about you, but it's about the work or the thing. So don't take it personally. Separate yourself from criticism. And if you're perfect, you're not challenging yourself. Just like with your kids. If they're getting 100 or they're perfect grades on everything, then they're not being challenged. People should be failing safely at this age. Hard work, new ideas leads to great rewards in life, but that there's always room for improvement. So you should always be pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and encourage your children to do the same. And when you model that, they'll see that in you. When you model, I'm trying something I'm not very good at, but I'm trying something new, and I'm going to expect to make a lot of mistakes, and that's okay because I'm going to learn from those mistakes. I'm going to use some new strategies and try something new. Modeling that for your kids is one of the best things you can do. So we all hold both mindsets and all the time. And sometimes my fixed mindset voice comes out, and what's important is to recognize that fixed mindset voice. And so my fixed mindset parenting voice sounds like this. My daughter had to memorize all of the capitals of all of the countries ever. And I was just like, what? That's so much. And I said, I was never good at geography. I mean, do we say these kinds of things? Oh, gosh. So that's what my fixed mindset parenting voice sounds like. And then I catch myself and I reframe it. And I say, wait a minute, that was a really fixed mindset thing I just said. Instead, I want to do over. I used to be really bad at geography because I didn't try hard and I didn't use good strategies and I didn't really try to get better. But some things I could have done, I could have talked to a friend, I could have studied. Like we didn't have, what's that app they use? Quizlet? Is it called Quizlet? So we didn't have that when I was a kid. I wish we would have had that, I just old school flashcards. But so these are things that you can do. You can reframe your fixed mindset voice for your kids, and that's another great modeling experience. So think about what yours sounds like. Think about when your fixed mindset voice comes out, because I promise you'll start to hear it. Is it about math? Is it about getting along with others? Is it about an instrument? Or whatever that girl's doing, I'm not sure. So how can you change your own mindset when you start to hear that fixed mindset voice? What are some of those strategies? First, you have to learn to hear it. You have to learn to listen to that voice that tells you that you can't, that you're not good enough, that you've always been bad at. Recognize that you don't have to have that voice. You have a choice in it. You can talk back with a growth mindset voice and say, this is what I can do instead. And then you can take whatever action that is and show your kids that you're doing it. And that'll set an example for them. It takes consistency. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Just like our public speaker friend up there said, I still have a long way to go. I'm sure I can get better. I'll continue to improve. Just like the little girl with the handstands in the pool. She still can get better at that. She said, and then I did it with a twist. So she wasn't content with just putting her feet up. She then did a twist. So we can always get better and we can always keep pushing ourselves, but some people will take longer than others. But why does your mindset matter so much? So can you guess which daughter has the fixed mindset and which one has a growth mindset? I'm not sure if it's immediately obvious in this photograph. So yeah, Raina in the back folded her arms over. I didn't catch a fish in 1 minute, then I quit. Fishing is lame. Fishing is for losers. But the little one could stand there all day and maybe I'll try this spot over here. Maybe I'll go try over here. Maybe I need to throw it farther. Maybe I need to try this strategy. So it's a struggle, but what I realized when my big aha moment of why my mindset mattered, and I couldn't just be chipping away at Raina, and I couldn't just try to teach her like, oh, it'll be okay if you fail, it'll be okay. I had to model that for her, and my aha moment was when I found this note balled up in the backpack closet from Raina to Sophie, who was standing with the fishing pole. Sophie, if you practice, you'll get better and better. Just try, and Mom will be happy. So this is the girl who quit everything she ever tried, ever. And now that I started teaching her about mindsets and I started using this language with her, she's running around telling everybody else to have a growth mindset. And I went, it's that trickle-down effect. Like, it's the trickle-down effect. You know, she sees me having a growth mindset, she's going to teach other people to have a growth mindset. And then everybody will start to give each other a break and say, hey, you're learning. That's okay if you make a mistake. I'm not going to publicly shame you for that. And this is Raina now. She's in 11th grade. This is her, and she is amazing. She is so responsible in school. She's not perfect, and I don't expect her to be. But I never even check her grades. I never do anything like that because she is just on top of everything. She's incredibly responsible. She knows when she's made mistakes and she has to go back and retake things. Just the other day, she had to retake a chemistry test, and she said, now, should I take the one that I got a 50 on, and I don't know any of it, or should I retake the one that I got a 70 on, and I'll do better because I know a little bit more of it? I was like, well, what do you think? Well, I think I should take the 50 because I'm going to need to know that stuff eventually someday anyway, right? Well, yeah, you should retake the one that you know nothing about. And she's in ACE chemistry, which I don't know if you have ACE here, but it's a really demanding and challenging program, and it's for college credit, and she's doing great. And she's in the Link crew, which is, so she's a mentor to other kids. So it's really exciting to see her progress, and she never would have come this far if I hadn't learned about mindsets. I would have shipped her off to a boarding school instead of saving for college, because we weren't going to make it past the 6th grade. But we have to start with our own core beliefs. So as we wrap up tonight, I want to thank you so much for coming. And before we leave, I want you to think, what is something that you're pretty sure that you can't do? And get that thing in your mind. We know what my thing is, but is yours maybe going back to school or working or time management or exercise or eating cheeseburgers, whatever it is that you have always wanted to do? And get that thing in your mind. Think, I'm pretty sure I can't do that. And then you add this one little word to it and completely changes the definition. It starts with you. So thank you very much. Thanks. I think we're going to have some time for some Q&A. And I also hope that you will find this handout helpful. There's some URLs on there, and there was a note-taking guide so that you could grow your brain while you were sitting here tonight. So if you're hanging out for a Q&A, raise your hand, and we'll have a runner bring you a mic. You have to press and hold.
Hi.
Hi.
My question pertains to actually one of the samples that you had in terms of the role playing.
Yeah.
When there was I believe it was a division problem or a simple mathematical concept, and then the growth and the fixed mindset. What about, I feel like I need something in between that wasn't really covered.
Oh, okay.
So what about when you have the kid that, in that instance, let's just say the kid did know it, it was already down-packed, but a kid is a kid, and sometimes they get lazy or distracted, they're not trying hard enough. I didn't think that either of those responses were really appropriate because A, he does know it, and you know for a fact he knows it, he's mastered it, so that wouldn't work, the growth answer I didn't think. Or the fixed one I didn't think was good either because, well, I mean, do you get where I'm going?
Yeah.
So what's a good happy medium insert when it's kind of like, get your act together? I mean.
Yeah, if it's a simple computational problem, you might just say, how'd you get that again? And then they'd go, oh, okay, I made a mistake. So instead of saying, no, it's not 3, it's 4, pay attention. You would say, how'd you get that? What did you do to get that?
Okay.
Question them, put it back on them. And then you would see that they go, oh, no, it's not 3, it's 4. duh, I need to pay attention. Oh, okay, maybe you do.
Okay. I guess just going a little farther when it's not that simple and it's more of you're trying to challenge or work with the kid that could not, maybe doesn't want to, or kind of like, how do you say, I know you know this. Is it wrong to say, I know you know this?
Yeah.
You've mastered this.
Kind of. You know what I would say, what I have said when I've been in that exact same situation, and this works like a charm. Your brain is not ready for this right now. Your brain is not ready to learn this. You need a break. You need a brain break. I want you to go for a walk. I want you to have a snack. I want you to read a book. I want you to draw a picture. No tablets, no video games, nothing that's a reward. Something that's just like a break from whatever it is that's frustrating them. And 9 times out of 10, when I say that to my children, you need a break. Your brain is too frustrated for this, or you're just not ready for this. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, I'm ready now. It's acknowledging that their brain won't let them do that task because the emotions are in the way of the learning.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about kids and people with different cognitive abilities. So you're talking about like high functioning autism, so their brain is already functioning in a different manner, and the connections have been proven that there's less connections there. How does this work when, like you gave the direction or the example of like you compliment them on loading the dishwasher, right, and things like that. They don't get that, and it doesn't stick with them. So the growth mindset is really difficult for like people with a different connection in their brains in the first place.
Right.
So how does that work?
Right. It's funny you should ask. My best friend has a low-functioning autistic son. And so I have this talk with her very, very frequently. And one of the things that she's come to understand is that you don't know what his potential is going to be, right? So you can't say, oh, he'll only ever do this. Elliot is never gonna learn this, never gonna learn that. Once you close the door on that, you close the door on any opportunities that Elliot is going to have in life. And so one of the things that she's doing is, okay, what can I do differently for him? So she's putting him into a private school. She's gonna have to sacrifice, exercise to drive him to school. And there's things that she's going to have to do to give him every opportunity to succeed and to become better. Is it gonna take him way longer than anybody else? Yes. Just in the same way that their learning disabilities are real. I mean, I have a degree in special education. That's real. That's not just you're not trying hard enough. That's something in your brain that is misfiring. But you can, and I don't want to say correct it, but you can. We don't know what anybody's capabilities are going to be, and so the second you label someone, or the second you say, "Oh, you're only going to," you've taken away the opportunity for them to grow and develop. So I don't have an easy answer other than to say, we want to keep that window of opportunity open, and we want to say, I believe that you can grow. I believe that you can improve from where you are. I believe that anyone can grow and change and improve from where they are. And we don't know how far you're going to get. Right. There's no finish line.
Right.
Okay. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
And growth mindset praise does work on her son. She praises the effort. Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
No.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was me. I thought that was you talking. Anyway, I had a question. Maybe comment on this. When you tell your child, well, if you try harder, if you work harder, if you have an open mind, you can be anything you want to be. And I don't think it's true. I mean, maybe the autistic child cannot be, the physicist or whatever in his or her life, but can do better. What would your comment be on telling a child they can do anything?
I mean, I don't say that. I don't say you can do anything you want to do, just because to me that feels very pie in the sky, and I just don't think that's necessarily true. Can you improve? Can you continue to build your skills? Can you get better and better and better? And do we know where you're going to end up? No. And that's really exciting and amazing, and I'm curious about that. But I don't want to, I feel like that's a false promise. You can be anything you want to be. when that's not the reality of life sometimes. I don't want to give a false promise of you can be this if you want to be this. I just want to say, I know you can continue to improve, you can continue to grow. Everyone can grow their brain, everyone can develop their skills and abilities through using different strategies, through asking for help, through practice and practice and practice, deliberate practice, really focusing on things that you're trying to get better at, and always trying to do things that are just a little bit too hard for you. But I personally wouldn't say you can do anything you want. It's not a, little engine that could, like, just keep chugging. It's not that same old tired story. Does that help at all? I don't know.
It doesn't. How do you deal with persistent failure in something? Your child is trying, but it's just not working. What can you say?
What can you say? I see that you're working, and it's not, nothing's changing, so it's time to try something different. We're not just going to say keep trying or try harder or do your best or pay attention, or we have to try something different if there's persistent failure. So, maybe that means a tutor, or maybe that means that you're going to change your own schedule and sit down with the child. I mean, I just recently had to do that. I had to block half an hour to my calendar every day. I need that work time, but I had to block it for my child because she needed help with her math homework every single day. I had to sit down with her. And so that's a sacrifice that we had to make to do something different, because she was struggling in that class. So whether it's a sacrifice that you make or whether it's something that the child does, you've got to try something different if the persistent failure is hanging on like that. Maybe you talk to the teacher, something different. Try to find interest, something that interests a child.
I have a son who, there will be times it just takes him hours and hours to finish something. I'm glad I came and I'm listening to this because I realized, I am saying a lot of those good things. Oh, you worked so hard. I'm glad you stuck with it. You finished. You got it. That's great. And one thing that is just hard is to see him, just struggle through it for so many hours that you're like, is this really like a 7th grader? Like, this is what they're supposed to be doing, kind of thing. And my girls both seem to just crank their homework out, and but it's no problem. So I know he struggles more, and I know it's So I guess I'm trying to, there are times where he wants me to look over something. I don't always, it's just such a long
Goes
slog.
on and on
Slog.
and on. I know the
and there are
feeling.
times I know, especially he was writing this 2-page essay, and I look over, I see mistakes or see misspelled words, and I just go through and I'm like, I'm gonna fix this misspelled word, and then I'm like, I'm doing this for him. I'm not. But there are times where we sit down together and I say, I mark everything, But at the same time, I think, what's the right thing to do? Or do I just say, okay, turn it in like that? Do I proof over his work? Is that, good, pointing out marking all those mistakes?
Yeah.
How do you handle, stuff like that?
Okay, so a couple of different things. First of all, with the length the length of time it takes him compared to his sisters, I would say that deep thinking is not fast thinking. So just because they got it done quickly, that doesn't mean they really spent a lot of time invested in it. So I wouldn't compare the time it takes.
Yeah, and
if he's frustrated the whole time, that's one thing, but if it's just takes forever and ever and ever. Einstein said, it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I sit with problems longer. So, sometimes people spend longer. My middle daughter, who's got a supercharged growth mindset, it takes her forever to do anything. The cell project, 4 weekend days. I'm not kidding. 8 in the morning until 8 at night at the dining room table, drawing the cell. And I was like, when will it end? You just want it to be over. But she doesn't care. It's like, and then the cell does this and blah, blah. So ask yourself, is it your frustration or is it his?
No, you're right. I guess that's it, is I know definitely he used to get frustrated. I know, because, this has been third, fourth grade where he'd had homework and it'd take hours. And it's like, this isn't good for a third grade. Now he's in seventh grade. I don't see him get frustrated.
Well, that's
See
good.
him just stick with it and keep doing it. So I guess, I shouldn't worry. I guess I just worry, like, that's like, is this normal? Like, is this what other kids are doing all weekend long,
Yeah, I wouldn't compare him to the other kids. I would say if he's not frustrated and if he enjoys learning and he wants to spend all weekend long doing his homework, God bless him. Like that's how he wants to spend his time. If you're trying to motivate, you might try to chunk the time. So I'll do that sometimes. I'll say like, okay, we're going to work from 10 to 11 on history. And, when I'm setting a timer, and at 11, you need to be done with history. So make sure you do all of the stuff in that hour, okay? Trying to, like, if we have other things to do that day, because you can't just spend 12 hours a day on homework on the weekends. You've got soccer games, you've got this, you've got that, all kinds of things going on. So I'll chunk the time and set little goals, and we'll make lists. We frequently make lists to say, okay, between 9 and 10, I'm going to work on this, and then I'm going to take a 15-minute break, and then I'm going to do this, and try to chunk it out. And that helps a lot with the wanderers. What was the other thing? There was another thing.
The other thing is you're going to tell me that I'm terrible because I actually sit down and I'll correct his spelling.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Which I shouldn't do.
Okay, so if he sees you and you're working with him as you do it, that's a learning experience. If you're doing it for him,
normally he's sitting down with me and I'm saying, okay,
well, sure, point out the mistakes.
And I will only for time, really. I could mark it all for him to go down and sit but he's already spent 6 hours doing,
And you're like, I'm done with this essay, and
I'm just like, here's a spelling error. Let's fix it.
I don't think that's wrong. You're not doing
terrible.
it for him where he doesn't hear about it.
No.
You're talking to him about it. You're teaching him about it. And then maybe slowly, gradually, you take that support away and you let him make some of those mistakes. And you let him come home with it. And you can say like, hey, I didn't proof this for you like usual. So it might come home with some mistakes on it. Do you want to proof it again before you turn it in? Or maybe you're just going to take those mistakes and take what you get.
Yeah, and you're right. I don't do it I certainly don't do it every time, but once in a while. And I was feeling guilty about it.
Yeah, as long as you don't do it for him without him knowing. That's what I would say to that.
No, right. No, he knows. So, okay.
Hi, we have kind of the opposite problem. Motivation is the question. We have somebody who's just, figured out what the minimum is that they can get away with and really kind of doesn't want to challenge themselves or really make an effort about it, doesn't see the value of doing it. Any thoughts on motivation?
Yeah, so that's a tough one because my oldest daughter falls into that trap all the time. If something is easy, sometimes she'll say like, I'm just going to go take the easy way out, right? One of the things that I always go back to in thinking about how to motivate kids in my classroom, where I teach or with my own children is teaching them what's happening in their brain when they're not challenging themselves. Like, well, that's fine. You can do that easy thing. You're not going to get any smarter. If you want to stay how you are your whole life, that's cool. All right. Ultimately, you can lead a horse to the growth mindset water, but you can't make them drink it. I would just make sure that they are as knowledgeable about what's happening in their brains as they can possibly be. And, if you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't constantly challenge your brain, you're not going to excel. You're not going to, what do you want your life to look like in 10 years and 15 years and 20 years? Think about what you want that to look like. Let's talk about how we map out a course to get there. So that's something that I would do. Like, my daughter wants to be a doctor, and so when she takes the easy way out, I say, okay, that's fine. Do you think a doctor would choose the easy route? No, probably not. Okay, up to you, your choice. I'm not going to make you, because you can't make them.
Hi, I have a question for the student that is overconfident in their abilities, that they don't think they're a failure at anything, even though you see them failing and they are failing, they don't see it. So I don't want to call them out and be like, actually you're failing, or no, you're not the best at that. I tutor a lot of kids, and I actually feel that they're overinflated in what they think their abilities are versus what they are. And so I need a gentle approach to show them where they're at and where they need to be. But they think they're where they need to be, and they're not. And so I'm looking for the language that gets them to want to grow and to also be aware of their reality.
Mm-hmm. I would use language like, it's time to challenge yourself now. We need to set the bar higher for you. Don't get comfortable because you're not growing if you're comfortable. Because if they think that they're great at something, then they're comfortable with that. So I would say, comfortable is not normal. Comfortable is stagnation. Comfortable is not learning, it's not growing, it's not becoming better. So you have to always be in a state of doing something just a little bit too hard for you. And as far as like showing them, oh look, you're not as good at that as you thought you were. Can you show exemplars? Can you show? I'm not sure what the subject is, but you can say like, this is what 100 looks like, or a level 5, or however the grades are done. And this is yours. Let's look at the differences here. Let's look at how we can make yours better, because it's not quite hitting the mark. So I would find ways to be honest. You don't want kids to think that I'm the best at everything. Oh yes, you are. Great job. Here's your trophy. No, that's not what we want them to think. Because then when they get out in the real world and it slaps them in the face, they will crumble. And they need the practice at failing. They need that when they're safe with people who care about them, who will help them learn strategies, and also to remind them when they struggle. Like always remind them, remember when you struggled over that thing? Remember when you struggled, but you got through that, didn't you? You'll get through the next thing too.
So my go-to is my thought is that they're not comfortable recognizing when they're in failure, so they just assume that they're not in there. It's like safer to think that they're better than to think that they really don't know it. So I don't know, is it bad to give them problems they can't do, just to let them experience small bits of failure with you, and then you give them the strategies there, because they truly have an overinflated sense of what they can do, and I'm like,
No, I think, as a math teacher, one of the best ways to teach math.
It's for math, so
it
you
is
can
math.
get mathy with me.
Okay, so I can do math. Okay, so you probably know that one of the best ways to teach kids is to give them things that they don't know how to do, and they try a bunch of things and they see what sticks. They could try 10 different strategies and they could all be wrong. And even if they are, when you do swoop in and show them how to do it, if they've never even seen that problem before, when you do swoop in and show them, then it's like, oh. It makes a huge difference in learning to let them fail first, rather than to just go, okay, let me show you how to do this problem that you've never done before. It makes a huge difference because it's opening up gaps of knowledge in their brain where they're like, I'm not sure, let me try this. No, that didn't work. How about this? I'm not sure. It's like little Velcro gaps inside of their brain, so that when you come in and you show them how to do it correctly, it sticks. It sticks harder than if you're just like, let me show you this thing. So they have to struggle a little bit. So I would say, like, I'm going to give you a problem, and I expect you to struggle. I expect you to not know how to do this, and I expect you to do it wrong.
And
sometimes what I'll
at the end of it, they didn't die along the way because they all think like if they get something wrong.
Oh no, I
like
expect you to get it wrong.
Crumbles.
Or this is a good one too. Give them problems that are worked out with mistakes, and say, let's find the mistakes. Or, this is a really great mistake, and this is what we're going to learn from it. Like, celebrate mistakes and make that a safe place to make a mistake. Make it okay, because mistakes are great in math. That's what we learn from. We learn from mistakes. And there's been research on when you have a growth mindset and you make mistakes, you pay attention to those mistakes and you learn from them. But if you have a fixed mindset and you think you're perfect already, then you just discount them. So you've got to get them into a growth mindset and say mistakes are our friends. This is something we learn from. It's something that we want to do in a low-stakes situation, so that when we get to a high-stakes situation, like a standardized test or something like that, we've already learned from those mistakes. We've already made them before. And if you don't acknowledge them in low stakes, then you're going to continue to make them in high stakes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I found the research that you showed really interesting, and it seemed like a lot of the students or children were more in the average range, I believe, and I'm sure there's more research out there. I was curious what you know about how it applies with students with diagnosed learning disabilities or IEPs or diagnosed speech and language disorders, and if that doesn't exist, maybe your own opinion on how that can work with them, the growth mindset.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, there's not a lot of research when it comes to kids with learning disabilities and any other kind of learning differences. There's not a lot of research about growth mindset. Anecdotally, I work with a person who has done it in her classroom. She now works at Mindset Works, but she did it in her classroom. She did the Brainology program, which is our student program, in her classroom for years, and she said the changes were just absolutely remarkable. So anecdotally, I've got a lot of evidence. There's a school in my town, Sebastian Middle School, and they're doing Brainology with their learning disabled 7th graders, and they're already seeing great improvements. So we know that it works. Right now I teach college algebra, but in the past I've taught intermediate algebra, which is a developmental math class at the college level. I would guess a lot of those kids have learning disabilities, but we don't call it that at college anymore. But the things that I did with them, where I would do things like, oh, this is an awesome mistake, or this is my favorite mistake, let's all learn from it. Or I'd give them a problem, and I'd say, I want you to do something you know is wrong. You know it's wrong. Well, that makes it safe to fail, because I know everybody's going to do something wrong. Tell me something you know is wrong. Tell me something you know is wrong. Tell me something. Okay, so we have all these things that are wrong. What could maybe be right? And then you go from there, but building a culture that is safe to make mistakes and fail allows them to step out of their comfort zone and experience that growth that only comes from making mistakes. And if you're always afraid to make a mistake, you're not going to grow. That's the problem. So no, I don't have any research on that. We were just talking about that in a meeting the other week.
Well, thank you so much, Jana, for coming tonight,
sure.
and Desiree, we appreciate it. I'm sorry we can't give you a bigger room full of applause, but you got that before everybody walked out. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for staying and for bringing your questions and your growth mindsets tonight. And we'll be following up with some emails to help you all understand what we're doing in the community to also help foster growth mindset beyond just this room tonight. So thanks again for coming.